What happens when you stop chasing people who don't value you? Have you ever felt invisible in the presence of someone you care about? As if your worth has diminished in their eyes? The pain of being undervalued is often more than just a fleeting discomfort. It can feel like a personal rejection, a blow to your dignity. But what if I told you that this very moment could be a powerful opportunity for growth? That when you no longer feel valued by others, you have the chance to rediscover and reclaim your self-worth in a way that is far more profound than any external validation? In this video, I will share a Zen and Buddhist perspective that can transform the way you approach relationships, self-worth, and personal growth. But more importantly, I'll offer insights into how you can take these teachings and apply them to your own life. The lesson is simple but powerful. When someone no longer values you, don't try to convince them otherwise. Instead, value yourself even more. Chapter 1. The Seeker's Story. Let me begin with a story from the Zen tradition, one that teaches us the profound truth of self-worth and detachment. There was once a seeker who, like many of us, dedicated their life to helping others. They offered kindness, wisdom, and time, without expecting much in return. The seeker lived in a serene environment surrounded by nature's beauty, fully committed to the service of others. However, over time, something began to shift. Those who once sought the seeker's guidance started to ignore them. Their presence was no longer appreciated. Their efforts were taken for granted. The seeker, confused and heartbroken, turned to their Zen master for advice. The master, with profound patience, shared an important lesson. When you pour water into a cup that is already full, what happens? The seeker, puzzled, responded, "It overflows." The master explained that just as the cup could no longer contain the water, the seeker was pouring their energy into a space that could not appreciate it. The time had come for the seeker to reclaim their essence and redirect their efforts wisely. As the seeker sat in contemplation after hearing the master's words, a deep sense of realization began to settle in. They had spent years giving their energy, wisdom, and love to others, never once questioning whether their efforts were truly appreciated or reciprocated. In their desire to be of service, they had forgotten a fundamental aspect of their own being, the importance of self-preservation and understanding their own worth. The Zen master's analogy was not just about the seeker's relationship with others, but also about the relationship they had with themselves. The seeker had been like a vessel constantly pouring out, without ever taking the time to refill their own cup. By focusing so intensely on others, they had neglected their own needs and inner peace, which ultimately led to feelings of emptiness and frustration. The master's lesson about detachment was not one of indifference, but of recognizing that true love and service must first come from a place of wholeness within. Detachment, in the context of the Zen tradition, does not mean abandoning those we care about or withdrawing from the world. Instead, it means cultivating a sense of inner strength and self-awareness that allows us to offer love, compassion, and wisdom without becoming dependent on external validation. When we are attached to others' perceptions of us, we lose sight of our true selves, and in doing so, we allow our worth to be determined by forces outside our control. This profound realization began to shift the seeker's approach to life. Instead of constantly seeking approval or appreciation from others, they started to focus on nurturing their own well-being, reconnecting with their inner essence. They learned to recognize their own worth, independent of others' opinions, and to detach from the need to be constantly needed. The seeker's journey was not about withdrawing from the world, but about learning to engage with it from a place of inner peace, knowing that their worth was inherent, not dependent on external recognition. Chapter 2. The Power of Detachment. As the seeker continued to reflect on the master's advice, they began to understand a deeper layer of its significance. Detachment, the master had said, wasn't about withdrawing from the world or abandoning relationships. It was about stepping back without emotional attachment. It wasn't about forcing others to see their value or chasing after fleeting validation. It was about reclaiming personal power by allowing space for true understanding to emerge. In the beginning, this was not easy. The seeker's mind often sought justification. trying to make sense of why their efforts were undervalued. They wanted to explain themselves, to make others understand the importance of their actions. But the master's words echoed in their mind, "Don't argue. Don't plead." These words were not just about avoiding confrontation, but about recognizing that sometimes the most effective way to communicate one's value is through the absence of expectation. As time passed, the seeker's practice of detachment deepened. They stopped chasing after recognition, stopped pleading for attention, and stopped seeking answers from those who had failed to appreciate them. In doing so, they discovered a profound truth. Their value did not diminish in the absence of others' acknowledgement. In fact, it became more apparent when they were no longer constantly available to solve problems, or offer advice, or give endlessly. Others began to feel the weight of their absence. The seeker observed that the same individuals who had once taken them for granted now struggled without their support. What was once easy for others became difficult. The wisdom that had been ignored became desperately sought. The kindness that had been overlooked began to feel like a void. This shift in dynamic wasn't a form of punishment or retaliation. It was simply the natural consequence of the seeker's absence. In stepping back, they allowed others the space to realize what they had lost. And in doing so, they allowed their true worth to shine. This experience taught the seeker that detachment doesn't mean running away from relationships or giving up on others. It means recognizing that true worth comes from within and cannot be dictated by external validation. The seeker no longer felt the need to prove their value. They understood that by stepping back, they gave others the opportunity to grow, to face their own challenges, and to come to their own realizations. The seeker's presence became more meaningful because it was no longer forced. It was a choice made from a place of inner strength. Chapter 3. Cultivating Inner Strength. As the seeker deepened their practice of detachment, they found themselves drawn further into the exploration of their inner world. Meditation became a daily refuge, where the seeker could sit in silence and observe their thoughts without becoming entangled in them. The practice of mindfulness helped them stay grounded in the present moment, without judgment, without expectation, and without the need for external validation. This newfound clarity allowed the seeker to understand a core teaching in Buddhism, anatta, the concept of non-self. This teaching asserts that the self we cling to is a mere illusion, a collection of transient thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It is not something permanent or fixed. Through this understanding, the seeker realized that their attachment to external validation, whether from others' opinions, praise, or approval, was the root cause of much of their suffering. The desire for recognition, when unmet, led to frustration, disappointment, and a sense of inadequacy. But by embracing anatta, the seeker could begin to loosen their grip on these attachments and experience true freedom. They started to see that their worth did not depend on what others thought of them. Instead, their worth was intrinsic, rooted in their very existence. This was a powerful revelation. The seeker was enough simply because they were. The idea that I am enough, not because others say so, but because I exist, became their mantra, a daily affirmation that helped cultivate inner strength. As the seeker repeated this mantra, they began to feel a deep sense of peace settle within them. They no longer sought approval from the outside world, nor did they feel diminished by the lack of it. They had discovered that true peace comes from within, and that self-respect and self-love are the foundations for cultivating lasting strength. This inner peace was not based on external circumstances or the treatment they received from others. It was rooted in the understanding that they were complete in themselves, and that their inherent worth could never be diminished by external factors. With this new sense of clarity, the seeker began to notice a subtle shift in the way others interacted with them. The people who had once undervalued or overlooked them now seemed to pause, perhaps out of curiosity or even regret. Some approached the seeker with apologies, acknowledging their past behavior. Others, however, remained distant, still trapped in their own egoic patterns and unable to see beyond their own attachments. The seeker, however, no longer felt the need for validation or recognition from them. They understood that not everyone would acknowledge their worth, and that was perfectly fine. Chapter 4. The Power of Boundaries. As the seeker continued to deepen their understanding of detachment, they began to realize the importance of boundaries in their life. Boundaries are often seen as a means of self-protection, but in the seeker's journey, they became a powerful tool for self-respect and preservation. Setting boundaries was not about creating distance out of anger or resentment, but about recognizing and honoring their own needs, values, and energy. In the past, the seeker had often overextended themselves, trying to prove their worth by giving endlessly to others. They believed that the more they gave, the more they would be appreciated or validated. However, through their practice of mindfulness and meditation, the seeker began to see that this pattern was not sustainable. By overextending themselves, they were not honoring their true essence. They were only perpetuating a cycle of seeking external validation. The seeker realized that the act of giving should come from a place of abundance, not from a place of depletion. Now, with a clearer understanding of their own worth, the seeker learned to set healthy boundaries. They welcomed those who returned with sincerity, offering compassion and kindness without expectation. However, they no longer felt the need to prove their value by overexerting themselves. Their actions and energy spoke for themselves, and they understood that their worth was not determined by how much they could give or how much they could endure for the sake of others. Through this practice of setting boundaries, the seeker became an embodiment of Zen wisdom. They moved through life with quiet confidence, grounded in their own truth. They no longer clung to relationships or situations that drained them, nor did they feel the need to chase after those who were indifferent to them. The seeker's energy was no longer wasted on people or situations that did not honor them. Instead, they cultivated their energy within, focusing on their own growth and well-being, and shared it with those who appreciated and respected them. In setting boundaries, the seeker discovered that true strength lies in knowing when to say no, when to step back, and when to protect one's own peace. Boundaries allowed them to maintain their inner balance, to preserve their energy, and to engage with the world from a place of integrity. They no longer felt guilty for prioritizing themselves. They understood that by doing so, they were better able to show up for others in a genuine, wholehearted way. This shift in perspective allowed the seeker to live a life of authenticity. They no longer sought approval from others or felt the need to earn love and respect. Instead, they attracted people who resonated with their energy, who valued them for who they were, not for what they could give. The seeker's journey became a testament to the power of boundaries, not as walls that isolate, but as tools that protect and nurture, enabling one to live with integrity and purpose. Chapter 5. A Life of Authenticity. As the seeker continued on their path of self-discovery, they began to realize that living authentically was the key to attracting the right relationships and opportunities into their life. They no longer sought external validation, but instead allowed their inner truth to guide them. This shift in perspective was profound. The seeker understood that the feelings of being undervalued, which once caused them pain, had actually been powerful teachers. They revealed to the seeker areas where they had compromised their own values or dignity in the pursuit of harmony and acceptance from others. Through this awareness, the seeker began to confront the subtle ways they had allowed their energy to be drained by situations and people who did not genuinely appreciate them. By addressing these imbalances, they reclaimed their personal power. The seeker learned that true peace and fulfillment came not from constantly pleasing others, but from aligning with their own values and standing firm in their worth. This process of transformation was not immediate. It took time for the seeker to undo old habits of seeking external approval, but with patience and perseverance, they began to experience a profound shift in their life. They no longer found themselves overextending or compromising to gain favor. Instead, their energy flowed naturally toward those who resonated with their authenticity. They began to attract relationships that were rooted in mutual respect and shared values, and opportunities that aligned with their true calling. The seeker's life became one of quiet confidence. They no longer felt the need to explain themselves or justify their choices. They had embraced the understanding that the universe responds to the energy we put out. When we value ourselves, we attract people and situations that mirror that same respect. The seeker's journey was a testament to the power of living authentically, of honoring one's true self and trusting that this alignment would draw what was truly meant for them. In this space of authenticity, the seeker found peace, purpose, and a deep sense of self-respect. Chapter 6. Final thoughts. When someone doesn't value you anymore, it can feel like a deep loss. But what if it was an opportunity, not a setback? A chance to step back, turn inward, and reclaim your self-worth. In the end, the lesson of Zen and Buddhism is clear. The greatest response to being undervalued is not to convince others of your worth, but to value yourself even more. By embracing detachment, setting boundaries, and cultivating inner peace, we can live a life of authenticity and freedom. So, next time you feel undervalued, remember the seeker's journey. Step back, turn inward, and watch as your true worth becomes evident, not just to others, but to yourself. This story isn't just about rejection, it's about awakening. It's about realizing that our worth is never diminished by others' inability to see it. Every moment of undervaluation is an opportunity to recalibrate, rediscover our inner strength, and reclaim our peace. Conclusion. I hope this story inspires you to reevaluate the relationships and situations in your life. Are you seeking validation from people who don't appreciate you? Are you pouring your energy into spaces that no longer have room for your brilliance? If so, it's time to step back, turn inward, and let your absence speak louder than your presence. Remember, you are enough, not because others say so, but because you exist. Let go of the need for validation and embrace a life of authenticity, peace, and self-respect. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more content that helps you grow and discover your true self.